If you would like to support me in making these videos, please check out the link to my Patreon campaign down below. If you support me on Patreon, you will also automatically be entered to one of my monthly giveaways. The Super Detail Kit was given to me free of charge by Skill Motorsport in order for me to do a review on it. I was not paid to say or do anything, these are my honest opinions, uncensored. In the Super Detail Kit there are a lot of photo etch parts for specifically the interior and some for the engine bay. Shaped them a bit after cutting them out of their sprues and then went on to gluing them in place. For the gluing I'm just using some regular Bob Smith Industries MaxiCure. You could just also use any normal CA glue, as that works really well with gluing various materials together like plastic and metal in this case. After adding all these photo etch parts, I started with primer. Now since I don't really like the plastic primer from Zero Paints for metal, I'm using some Tamiya metal and plastic primer, which does really work well with both materials, but is a bit expensive to use on the entire kit, so I'm just focusing with this primer on the metal parts. All the other parts were just primed with some Zero Paints gray primer. Now that all the parts and pieces have been primed, I just moved on to applying various different shades of silver and also went crazy with black, flat black, semi-gloss black, matte black, and even some gloss black. Everything was used. And for the dashboard and seat, I used some textured black to simulate the sort of rough, gritty, I think it is flocked finish on the actual pieces, but I didn't really want to flock them as that would be a bit too aggressive. So I just used the textured black to simulate something very similar. All of the parts and pieces have received their main colors, so I could move on to detailing. Some of the parts got some high and low lighting with some panel line accent color, others just got weathered a bit with a Tamiya weathering set, and mostly some extra colors were added here and there with some blacks and some silvers. I even used some permanent markers to simulate some of the knobs on the interior for the dashboard piece with a big control display. couple of decals got put in for the interior and also a couple more for the engine bay. These were from the extra decal set that came with the super detail kit, just to detail the engine bay out a bit more with some carbon and chrome. With that all said and done, everything could be glued together. I'm just using some Maxi Cure as that is good enough for all these parts that will mostly be invisible. The wheels that are supplied with the Super Detail Kit from Scale Motorsport need the use of the stock tires from the kit. These tires are perfectly fine except for the huge mold line in the middle of them, so I scuffed them up to make them look a bit used, then put them on the wheels and had a really nice looking set. And then it was back to more glue. The Super Detail Kit also comes with a lot of the belt buckle material. I did a full video on this a while back, but I also taped the full process of me making these seatbelts for this specific job, so if you want a time-lapse video of that, please leave a comment down below and I'll make sure to upload it very soon if so desired. A couple of you guys warned me about the dashboard not really fitting that well with the body after you put it in place. I personally did not have any problems with this whatsoever, but be aware that some of these kits might give you problems with the dashboard and fitting later on. The body, chassis, and interior fit together pretty well, but just to keep it in place permanently, I added a bit of glue. With the chassis, interior, and body now together, I needed to put them on some wheels. So these aftermarket wheels from Scale Motorsport come with some adapters for the standard black metal rods. These metal rods are a bit too long, so you might need to shorten them in order to fit the wheels inside of the wheel wells, but other than that it's quite straightforward. Just put them all together and then glue them in place. For the gluing up of these final body pieces, I decided to use some Super Gold Plus instead of the MaxiCure, as the MaxiCure does run the risk of a bit of the white hazing super glue tends to do, and this Super Gold Plus should be safe to use and does not really haze that much. You still need to be careful as it is still super glue. Everything glues together really quickly, and sometimes even things you don't really want to glue together. Be aware, but for these parts I decided to use these glues. The kit does not come with any rear view mirror lenses or decals even, so I had to do that myself with a Molotow chrome paint pen. The final decals were put in place, and then I added some decal set on top of them to form them to the parts a bit better. I did the same for the decals on the tires. Now be aware, these still are very fragile. If you do want to touch them, it's not really a good idea. I just put them in place, added some decal set on top of them, and let them be. They formed perfectly well to the tires, but again, I don't advise touching them afterwards.